Chapter 18. The Thing. Kai was pushed like a rabid dog when a crowd, or perhaps better said an angry mob, formed around him as the two warriors escorting him, Connor and Knut, gripped his arms firmly. Having untied his legs, Kai felt a ringing sensation around his feet, where red and purple marks showed his blood circulation had nearly been cut off. They walked him back into the heart of the village and deep into the market center that was surrounded by stalls and booths of people selling various fruits, vegetables, pottery, tools, and weapons for the now central event. The Thing. Upon reaching the center of the village, the king's dwelling, Kai looked forward and found two large chairs placed in front of the largest hut he had ever seen, with two people, the king and the queen, seated in them, and Traust warriors on each of their sides. As he approached closer, he observed a row of stone benches facing each other in opposite directions, perpendicular to the throne chairs, with figures wearing layered and vibrant-colored garments of linen and wool on each of the hall's sides. Jarls, Kai thought. So they have judges and classes too. A man dressed similar to the Jarls and seated on the benches stood with his back to the king on a mound with a staff in his hand and looked inquiringly at Kai. That must be the Logsugumother, Kai said to himself, remembering that the Jarl who recited the laws to the assembled people always held a staff in the Langa tribe whenever a thing was summoned. In front of Kai, with their backs also turned to the king and queen and facing the young Langa, stood Ragnbjorg, with a unit of berserkers wearing similar-fashioned wolfskins to the ones Kai had seen in the known unknown. Only their tunics were red. The midday sky was cold, dark, and indifferent, but the people were buzzing with the enthusiasm of bees whose nest had been hit with a rock as news of a Langa capture had spread throughout the Traust tribe like wildfire. The perspiration of the people could be felt collectively in their huddled gathering, both from the sheer activity everyone had exerted in quickly getting to the assembly and the adrenaline of the situation at hand. Behind Kai was a village of 5,000 men, women, and children, made up mainly of people in progressively less fine clothing, the Karls and Thralls. "Quiet, quiet!" A Jarl on the stone benches to the right of the king and queen began to yell. "The thing has come into session." Quickly, the people's loud, frenzied voices began dying down into quiet, low shudders. Ragnbjorg stepped forward. "We have here today a Langa who violated Odin's provision for our Traust tribe by overstepping his own border and entering into what is our rightful and forbidden territory. Had this been one of our beloved Nordman allies, we should seek answers and perhaps send him home with provision or an opportunity for future trade. But you all know as much as I do that this is no Nordman. This is a Langa." Immediately, the crowd roared in anger and rage. Now, order!" Ragnbjorg continued. "It is custom for the town to decide what should be done moving forward." No more than a second before finishing his sentence, a berserker next to Ragnbjorg interjected, "There is no decision to be made, because the decision has already been made. This man is to be executed as both a blood offering to Odin and as an example to the Langas that Traust is the kingdom by which no foreign king may claim, no warrior desert, and no outside entity provoke. We are Odin's army, and to harbor or show mercy to the kin of cowards will only anger the gods." "And what?" An older Jarl, with fine clothing on the side stone bench to the throne, stood up and began, "Would that accomplish? We all know it was Gorm who abandoned Frode at the Battle of Arna's Hill, leaving Traust blood in the mud, while Langa fled. and yet Frode, for years, still called them kin. Should we not do the same? The crowd broke into conversation. Kai suddenly felt a surge of stimulating curiosity immediately berate his mind. What does he mean, he thought, that Gorm betrayed Frode? It's obvious that Frode betrayed... Suddenly someone else stood up. Now, a younger Jarl on the opposite bench began. Let's not all get sentimental. Let's be pragmatic. What can we get from the young man? He can serve us as ransom to the Langers, or perhaps even leverage against them. And if neither leverage nor ransom, let him live out his days a thrall. But let us not be impractical. Immediately, a group of farmers, after looking at one another, stood up to show their approval as the crowd broke back into conversation. "Silence!" the Logsugumother, holding onto his staff, yelled. "You know the law, and the law states, as it has since the Great Schism, that any Langer caught in our territory is to face ordeal. And so, if the king confirms and the town concurs, let his fate be decided by Odin. If he dies, the gods judge him guilty, but if he lives, let him live out his days a thrall under Ragnbjorg's household. Perhaps then he is meant for something more." And looking up at the king, who gave the Logsugumother a nod, and then looking back to the crowd, who, after some time of pondering, began to roar in approval and chant, "Ordeal." The old law speaker pointed his staff to the exit of the thing and said, "It is determined. At dawn this Langer will face ordeal, where Odin will decide his fate." As Kai was dragged away through a hostile crowd, with a brandished and burning back, his mind replayed the Logsugumother's last words. Odin will decide his fate. He could only think of the blue sack tied to Ragnbjorg's belt, and the same question he asked while hunting in the forest resurfaced, the question he asked before the wind betrayed his scent. Do the gods will, or do I?